Welcome back, friends, to the next episode of the James and Jess channel. Thank you so much for joining us. If you are new here, welcome. If you're not new here, welcome. It's so good to see your smiling faces, and we're stoked to chat with you today. And today is the very first time that Jess is officially on the show. I know she's been in the vlogs and traveling and stuff, but this is a brand new segment where weekly, Jess and I are gonna sit down and we're just gonna chat all things working with your spouse, relationships, business, the hard times, the good times, and everything in between. And I have to preface with all this by saying, I 100% recommend it. We're gonna talk about the ebbs and flows and everything else. And today, we're just gonna start from the beginning and kind of tell you how we kicked off working together and the roles we took and how we got to where we are here. But honestly, over it all, if you can make it work, it is fantastic. Highly recommend it. And if you have never been here before, we are James and Jess. We're a husband and wife wedding photographer team. We have been privileged to photograph over 350 weddings all over the world. We absolutely love what we do. And now we get to travel the world, speak at conferences, host workshops and retreats, and talk to amazing people like you here on YouTube, teaching you not only how to thrive in business, but in life. So without any further ado, we're gonna kick this off, and we're just gonna kind of start of the beginning of how we just started working together. You know, what were the assumptions and what, you know, if you're not intentional about it, which is a huge point of talking about all this, right? Put intentionality into it. Things just kind of happen. And a lot of those things happen well, a lot of them do not. And it's the intentionality and the grind behind it that makes it worth it and makes it work well. So I'm gonna have Jess kind of take this off from where we started when we met and where I was. We were both professionals, but I'm gonna hand it over to her.
Yeah, so James and I were both photographers separately before we met and started dating. So I'd already run a business, Jessica Fairchild, as a wedding photographer for
hashtag a successful business.
Thank
like
you.
The little asterisk comes up. It's a successful business. I was a hashtag a student.
True. We were both photographers. And I'd already been a photographer for about 6 years before we actually met. So when we started dating, we started shooting together, which that is a whole nother story for a whole nother one of these. But after a month or so, we started shooting together, and that was amazing. But as our lives merged together, our businesses merged together. And so we learned, I would say, the hard way of how do we want to figure all this out.
Yeah.
So
and once we got married, like we were photographing together, but we never officially merged businesses. The first year, remember, was a big year, and I'll tell you extensively of stories all about that, but kind of the broad scheme of things, let's get married, let's move in together, let's merge businesses together, let's completely rebrand, let's find our style as a couple.
Yeah.
That's a lot. One of those things is a lot alone. So we were just we threw ourselves in the hot seat. We were also so young that we were the first of our entire extended communities and all of our siblings to get married.
Yeah.
So it was just a lot of eyes on us, but also a lot of attention, a lot of pressure, not in the way of like, oh, we need to make it, but just out of nature, that's kind of how it was.
Yeah. So then our first year married is when we officially became James and Jess. And as we were both fully into the business, we both knew this is what we're fully going to do. We decided that we should split every task down the middle.
It was just the most logical thing at the time.
Now looking back, stupid decision. But at the time it was
But if you're doing that, don't feel bad, but we're going to help fix that.
Let me explain. But we thought, okay, so we shoot a wedding, I'll edit half the images, and James will edit the other half of the images.
Man.
And then I'll look over all of them at the end. And then James will write half the emails.
I also
and
hate
I will write
photos.
half the emails. Like, yeah, you're right.
So that all started, well, one, from the get-go, the rebranding process we were encouraged by a lot of people. At the time we got married, we actually had successful businesses. Hers, obviously, just longer than mine, older than mine, out of the nature of just she started way earlier and successful, but we were getting paid. We were professional photographers, we were doing our thing, and we were really hesitant until a few months into marriage. A lot of stuff happened, and that's all stories for other times. A few influential people in our lives basically sat us down and said, you're doing this. I know this seems like I'm pressuring you, and they said I am, and they kind of strong-armed us into us, and thank God they did, because every because they said if you don't do this now,
Officially
rebrand, officially go into business together, as James suggests, every year you're going to think about it, and it's going to get harder and harder and harder. Out of the nature of your other paths are going to grow stronger and stronger. And we did, and that was fantastic. And I can only imagine if we had like booming businesses and they were like, let's try this together. So looping back, we literally right down the middle. Everything from emails to editing to culling. And I guess at the part down the middle with the editing and culling was we both shot. So I would do my card, she would do hers card. And it was very codependent on if someone finished their task, the other person had to wait. And we learned pretty quickly that we work really oppositely. I wake up at 5 a.m. and start cranking out work. Even in college, if I had a paper to write, I'd sleep. I wake up at 3. She would pull the all-nighters. To this day, she's still up till 2 or 3 sometimes. And that's just how we work best. It took us a lot to learn that.
So something that I always thought was really cute or really good for marketing was if James and I are the same, it's really fun. So I would think if James and I have the same personality type, so cute. If James and I like dress in similar colors, very cute, great for marketing. So I thought that we had the same personality types. And then
so this was
we learned
this was
we do
we
not.
don't. This was right around the time when this is before Enneagram really took off.
Yeah.
This was around when Myers-Briggs, which is the 16 personalities, which was still a wonderful thing, was very much trending, was very much a thing, and this is what happened. We were doing okay, like we were getting to that point where we realized, I don't know if this will work not because of our compatibility. This has never been a question of relationship. It's always been the easiest and most fun thing in my entire life, still is to this day. But when you're doing business together, you're thinking, this shouldn't be this hard. We don't understand there's big disconnects, and pulling back now, I'm like, no, there was a lot of disconnects, but I digress. So the same person who told us to rebrand, again, strong-armed us into this mastermind. It was a year-long mastermind it was 40 people divided into 5 groups of 8. So literally of 8, and you would have calls every week or every other week. You'd meet every quarter, and it was on leadership development, specifically personality types. Specifically, phase 1, know yourself to lead yourself, as in know how you function, know how you tick, know how you're created, know your faults, your kryptonites, know your weaknesses, know your strengths, and how to use all those things. And then once you get that, how do you lead others? How do you lead your team, your spouse, your company? And then other than that, how do you teach? And I can say honestly right now, that is the reason we're here today. It's the biggest thing, and we resisted it, but this human was very generous and forced us into it. They didn't say they were comping it or anything, and the bill on this thing was like absurd, especially for 2 kids who just got married. And we're like, okay, in tears, like I guess we're gonna be in debt from this, but it worked out. And what happened when we joined was really interesting.
So we were put into 2 separate groups, which I automatically thought was very interesting that they wanted us to be in separate groups. Didn't you think that was interesting?
Yeah, it was. But looking back now, I understand where they thought we couldn't play off each other's no she this, no he that. Yeah. Not that we would bicker at all, but we just thought we knew, as all 3-month-old couples do, each other really well. So they separated us for a year in this group. So it was, I had my own people and mentor, and she had her own people and mentor, and they were able to pour into us individually. Because if we were ever going to be compatible on a business level, we had to understand how we tick first so that we can communicate better when it came to the point of leading and co-leading a business together.
So when we first took the MBTI 16 personalities test, I tested as an ESFP. James tested as...
And I am. This part is true. I'm an ENFP, which if you want to translate that into our Enneagrams, I'm a 7, which would put her near a 7 too, which if you know Jess, she's not. But
not a 7.
It was that part where it was like, it's cute, and you know, when you answer those questions, you can answer what you want to be or what you envision yourself to be.
Or what you think you are.
And then about 3 months in, literally the first quarter went by, and I'm digging this, and Jess is kind of frustrated because she's like, I'm not getting value out of this.
I felt like there was no application. So I was like, this just doesn't really feel like it relates to me because I was not the personality type that I had tested at.
So one night, it was after the first quarter summit. So we met once, quarter went by, we met again with our whole crew, and that's when we're all together. We separate, we get back together, all these things. Sound like a breakup. Just a mastermind. And we were home that night, and she was expressing her frustration after I'm kind of on cloud 9, just learning all this stuff about myself. So the mastermind gave us these resources, and it was 16 videos, and they called them the Kryptonite. And it was describing each of the 16 personalities' biggest weaknesses in all categories, from relationships to business to self-help personalities, all those things. And we pressed play on mine, and it was like, yep, that's me. And we started laughing, nailed it. And then we pressed play on Jess, what she thought she was, ESFP. And Jess we were like, this is not even close. So somehow this was perceived wrong. So we start playing through all of them, and a few hours in and a few glasses of wine in, we hit one. And I start laughing hysterically because I realize this is Jess. That's what she does to me. That's how this and all these things. And I look over and she's bawling her eyes out.
Because I felt so known and seen, but also realizing...
Called out.
Yeah, very called out. Realizing what it was like to be on the other side of me. James saying, that's how you treat me. That's what you do. And I realized, oh my gosh, this is actually what my personality type was.
Which is?
ESTJ.
Which is, if you want to go to Enneagram 1. And the best way I can sum that up...
Not a 7.
Not a 7. That's what it is. On the scale, they're the opposites, but that's the best part about it.
Yeah.
And if you want to put it into like an idea, and this isn't harsh, and I'll explain why, is Jess is a bulldozer. Mm-hmm. Jess is very focused on what's in front of her. The task at hand, if it's not broke, don't fix it. I know what I'm supposed to do. Here's my tasks, my list. If there's anyone in the way, I'm gonna run over you or get out of my way. The emotions don't matter. It's just I'm doing the work. I, on the other hand, I'm a 7. I am an ENFP, which means I'm pretty unorganized naturally. I am very spontaneous. I don't get stressed out with, I can work and play. Yeah, I mean, and I lack natural structure. I've implemented structure, but I'm also very forward thinking, and I'm also very emotional based. Jess is very what's in front of her and logical based. Thinker. She thinks with the head, I think with the heart, if you want to put it that way. So what we realized was through this whole mastermind was, wait, this might work really, really well because you look like this and I look like this. And if we're able to whatever buzzword synergy, put it together and fill in each other's gaps, we might be able to have a remarkable business. And fortunately we do, and it wasn't that easy figuring that out, but we slowly started to learn those things. And one of the bigger things we learned was when I approached Jess and I think of something in the future that's so valuable, we need to go there, it just stresses her out because she's focused on the work. But my heads are in the clouds. So all she sees is I'm here, you're explaining, I'm here, you can see me, I'm here, there's a big cavern here, and there's another mountain over here. You're explaining this, and I'm just focused on the work on this side. But what we realized, if I can keep one part of my head in the clouds and put a foot on the ground and say, hey Jess, I know we're here. This is why this matters. And here's the first 3, 4, 5 steps to get there, and help her with that vision. I can then hand it off to her and she can bulldoze the rest of the way. Yep. And we've been able to learn those things throughout the past 7 married years and 9 years together, and 10 years knowing each other of business. And that's where it really turned over. And that's kind of how we all started. And then at that point we started realizing James should not be editing. He should not be culling when he hates editing. I hate editing. I hate editing photos. I love editing videos like these because that's kind of the creative part.
He literally has
the step and repeat thing is just not for me.
He literally asked me to edit photos on Lightroom Mobile.
Oh yeah, we share Lightroom Mobile, so I'm like, I uploaded a photo if you want to take a look and edit it for me.
He hates editing.
I'm
sorry I made you do that.
No, you're good. And we realized the other thing that was at that point, we realized, okay, Jess is good at this, I'm good at that. The other issue was the stuff Jess was doing, because, bulldozer, what's in front of me, task at hand, cross it off the list, was very tangible. It was very, at the end of every single day, she should say, I did this, and here it is to prove it. The things I'm really good at, are larger projects. They are the building courses. They're the client communications, the bigger picture things where maybe a month or 2 or 3 later, I can say, look at this massive thing I produced. But at the end of every day, sometimes I didn't have a tangible thing to prove it. And that was a point of tension for a while where we'd end the day and I'd feel guilty almost. We're like, I think I worked my ass off today, but I really don't have something tangible yet.
To cross off a list.
And she did. And we have since realized the power in both those things, because if we can both do those things together and respectively have those tasks and roles, amazing things happen.
Yep. Another thing that I love that we learned is how the other person perceives information differently. Like the words that I'm speaking to James, he may actually hear something different than what I'm saying, and vice versa, which really became apparent in certain situations.
Oh man. Okay, so I got a story for you. I didn't think this one was coming up. So this boils down to the you know yourself to lead yourself, and then know yourself to lead your team, which means the words out of my mouth might not be heard or perceived the same. So one time, years ago, so in the first year we were married, we were going through this mastermind, and we live about 2.5 hours from Disneyland, 2 hours without traffic. We had Disney passes that year. I think it was one of our wedding gifts to ourselves. So we would go, when we weren't traveling, it was kind of like our refuge to go and just experience something. So it's like a Friday night, and I think we maybe had a shoot Saturday, and Friday night
We had a wedding on Saturday.
Yeah, Friday night I just spat off like, hey, we should go to Disneyland Monday. That's all I said. Sunday night comes around, and Jess is, hey, what time do you want to leave in the morning?
Yeah.
And I go, for what? And she was not just pissed, just disappointed, because it's like, oh, she legit thought we were going to Disneyland.
Because I heard, let's go to Disneyland on Monday as we're going to Disneyland on Monday. So then the wedding that we shot on Saturday, I stayed up extra late on Saturday night and worked extra hard on Sunday to make sure that the couple had exactly what they needed so that I didn't have to work on Monday so we could have a wonderful day at Disney.
And I think we did end up going, but I learned...
No, we didn't.
Ooh, my bad. So we didn't go to Disneyland because I was so thrown off that my head was like, we're not going to Disney. What are you talking about? I don't even remember saying it. So the most valuable thing in that was I learned, and in future episodes of this, I'm going to talk about specific tools and ideas and language we have to understand those things. But the moral of that is it is an obligation where if I want to communicate something to Jess or a bride or a student, I need to learn how they perceive information. Because if I give information, for example, that seems like a thought that doesn't matter, someone might perceive it as a promise, and vice versa. Someone might send something as a promise, and I might take it just passively. So you start to understand. So now I understand what I mean to Jess, and I'll just preface this with I'm just BSing right now and spitballing. This might happen. So that was a really powerful thing to learn. And with that, I learned I could basically say anything to Jess and it just water off the duck's back because she functions in a very logical thinker base.
Yes.
It's unfair because she'll say something to me and it's just every idea I have, I say to her is attached to my heart. I'm holding up this idea and it's right here. And if she shoots it down, it goes through that and hits my heart. She's had to learn that the hard way because I probably just get sad every time she's like, that's a stupid idea. And a lot of them are. Not all of them.
During the mastermind, I learned this during the mastermind, and I got called a dream crusher.
Yes. Not by me.
Not by him, by other people
I was in the
my
corner
group
smiling.
because I explained what had happened. But that's the thing. He would be so excited about these ideas and he would bring them up and I would say, no, we're not going to do that.
Because in my head, I'm dreaming up here and they're not stupid ideas, but to someone who doesn't get that vision
and doesn't see
the way to get it, she'll shoot it down as stupid, and then I'll be like, oh my gosh, and get all sad. But now you just start to learn. If I can half bake this and say, hey, this is why it's valuable, because she needs to hear these points to actually understand it. It's not that she doesn't give a is that she doesn't understand it.
Yeah.
And if my goal is to communicate with my wife and business partner something valuable, it's up to me to bake it enough, to communicate it enough that she understands and perceives it, and vice versa. And that was a massive thing we learned.
And it's my job to also not just stab
Yeah,
my
that
idea.
too, for sure. This is on video now, documented.
To listen and hear and understand and then have
Yeah.
a conversation about it.
So
We've learned a lot.
we've learned a lot.
Yeah.
And by no means am I an expert on marriage or owning a business, but we've been doing it for a while now and we've learned a lot of things. And our goal with this segment is to just talk about them. So if you guys have questions on this, we're here. I post in this channel daily. So get in here, ask questions, your remarks, whatever it is. I won't get offended. It's not gonna be that emotional. It'll be fine. She'll be fine. I'll be okay. And just fire away. And if you're gonna start anywhere, take a personality test. My mentor asked me a few months ago, he said, if someone said one thing, if you could say one thing about what was responsible for your success, and that's a pretty loaded statement.
Very loaded statement.
But if you were to have to choose one thing to tell someone else, and it took me a while to think, and it was such a loaded statement, I thought, I don't have one answer. And then I did. And it really was self-awareness, because without knowing yourself and how you were created, how are you ever going to lead yourself somewhere? Like for me, for example, I lack structure, but I also know structure is really good and systems are really good. So I take external structure and now these things fire really well. It might look different than someone like Jess who naturally understands it. So to repeat that to you, if you're going to start anywhere, know yourself. Get to know yourself really, really well and start to be self-aware of how you function, what pisses you off, what doesn't, how you are created and how you tick and what your nature and nurture and all those things are, because really it's an unboxing. I used to think it was boxing me in, like, oh, if I have a personality test, I'm a 7 and I'm a blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, I am naturally, but there's also a lot of benefits of that. And if I know that, I can catch myself before pitfalls and you can have, successful businesses like this. One of my mentor in this mastermind said, picture your personality type like a tree. And the trunk of the tree, the bark of the tree is technically your personality type, a 7. I have a 7 tree trunk, if you will. And you should be so fruitful and know yourself so well that the fruit you're producing is so lush that it covers the bark of your tree so that someone can't just look at you out of fault and say, you're a 7 because this. They can just look at you and be amazed with how well you know yourself and lead yourself and your team. So that's my encouragement to you. And starting point, I would take a personality test, and I've linked my favorite Enneagram test below. I think that's the most powerful one right now. And I would love if you guys took that. If you know your personality and you've learned anything, hit it in the comments and hit that like button if you enjoyed this video. But that's where I suggest everyone starts.
Yeah, especially if you've already taken the test, it's really good for your partner to take it as well, because it's really interesting to learn how your personalities work together. And my encouragement is, when you take it for the first time, if you happen to be a little bit maybe saddened or you read about yourself and you think, I really do that, don't be discouraged. I was a little bit discouraged when I learned my personality type because I'm a workaholic and a bulldozer and I plow people over in order to get to the task.
She's also all these amazing things.
Thank you.
I also think bulldozer's a cool thing.
It is. It's very effective.
Shit gets done.
But it's important to learn what you do and how you function in that way so that you can use it to grow. So that I know in the future, okay, when I'm focused on a task, I need to make sure that I don't plow over James in the way, because I love him and I never want him to feel like I'm plowing over him, but I still want to finish the task. So as you take those tests, take it with a grain of salt. Remember that, yes, this may be my tendency, but that doesn't mean that that's what I'm actually going to do. I can work on that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's the easiest way to learn what to work on and how to move forward. So encouragement to you, moral of the story, get to know yourself, become more self-aware every single day. Take that test if you haven't. We're here. We're in this channel daily. I would love it if you subscribed if you haven't yet, and you're going to be seeing this segment. We don't even have a title for it yet, but just the James and Jess relationship segment of the show.
You just titled it.
There it is, a working title. Until next time, you guys, have an amazing day. Know that you are capable of great and amazing things. Take that personality test if you haven't yet. Share yours if you do or when you get your results, and we will see you in the next episode. Welcome back, friends.